Whispers, a flickering light, a presence that lingers. Have you ever passed by an apartment window late at night and seen a light still glowing? A warm, steady light, in the same room, every single night. But no one ever comes in. No one ever leaves. No movement. No sound. At first you might think maybe someone just forgot to turn it off. But then it's been a week, then 2, then a month. And the light is still on. Just like the last time anyone saw Jennifer Lynn. Jennifer wasn't the type of person to make waves. Quiet, routine, predictable. She lived alone in a modest third-floor condo in a quiet suburb just outside Seattle. A data analyst by day, a puzzle solver by night. She made her morning coffee at exactly 7:15, walked to the same bus stop, came home by 6:45. Always. Until one Thursday in April, she didn't. No forced entry, no struggle, no goodbyes. She just disappeared. And yet her condo window kept glowing at night, as if the room was still waiting. As if something or someone never left. What happened to Jennifer Lynn? Why did no one hear a thing? And who or what kept the lights burning in apartment 3B? If you're watching this late at night, leave a light on. Not because you're scared, but because once we begin, you won't want to be in the dark. Jennifer Lynn lived the kind of life that never made the news. She was 32, single, no kids, no pets. Her world existed quietly in a 2-bedroom condo on the 3rd floor of a beige cookie-cutter complex called Briarwood Pines. The kind of place where every balcony looks the same and silence hangs in the hallways like dust in the air. People didn't really know Jennifer, but they noticed her. The old woman down the hall remembered the polite nods. The barista at the corner cafe knew her order: iced green tea, no sweetener. The mailman noticed that she always picked up her packages the day they arrived, never later. She didn't host parties, she didn't date publicly, but she was never reclusive. By all accounts, Jennifer was simply dependable, predictable, neat. She worked as a data analyst for a mid-sized logistics company downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but it suited her. Spreadsheets, patterns, predictability. Co-workers described her as brilliant but distant, the kind who'd find an error in your report without saying a word, just quietly fixing it and sending it back. Her supervisor said she'd never taken a sick day, not once. Her condo reflected her personality: minimalist, clean, neutral tones. One small bookshelf mostly filled with true crime novels and puzzle books. A kitchen stocked with meal prep containers labeled by day. On her fridge, a single magnet shaped like a cat paw. She didn't own a cat. Every Thursday evening, Jennifer logged into a virtual board game group, 5 strangers she'd met online during the pandemic, now closed digital companions. They played logic puzzles together, escape rooms, mystery simulations. And yet, even her online friends didn't know much about her real life. She kept conversations light. If anyone asked about her family, she changed the subject. If someone pried too much, she'd laugh it off. Neighbors said her younger brother Mark had visited her once 2 years prior, but no one had seen him since. And there were no photos in the apartment to confirm. Seattle in April is still cold, still grey. On the morning of April 12th, Jennifer left for work at 7:30 a.m. Security cameras in the lobby caught her locking her door and walking down the hall, black coat, brown leather bag. Nothing unusual, nothing at all. But that evening, she never logged in to her Thursday game night, never answered texts, never showed up at work the next day. At first, no one panicked. People go on spontaneous trips, phones die, things happen. But when Monday came and she didn't return to work, her boss called the police. A wellness check was requested. Officers knocked on the door of apartment 3B. No answer. The door was locked from the inside. But then came the first detail that made the hairs on the officer's neck stand up. The living room light was on. Through the sheer white curtains, they could see the soft yellow glow and something else, a shadow, just for a moment. It moved, but when the door was forced open, the condo was empty. Jennifer's phone was still on the charger, her wallet on the counter, keys in the dish by the door, her jacket still hanging in the closet. Nothing was taken. No sign of forced entry, no blood, no struggle, no note. Just absence, like she had stepped out for a moment and never came back. And from that night on, the living room light was always on. No matter how many times it was turned off unplugged, even when the power company confirmed disconnection weeks later, neighbors swore they still saw it. A light, flickering behind the curtain, faint, but there, as if someone inside was still waiting or watching. It started with silence, and silence, when it lingers too long, begins to feel like a sound of its own. Jennifer's co-workers were the first to worry. By Tuesday morning, her desk remained untouched. No login on the company system, no email replies. Her supervisor Melissa had called her cell twice. It rang once and went straight to voicemail. But then something strange happened on Wednesday. Jennifer's email account sent a message, just one, a one-line reply to Melissa's last check-in. Sorry, just needed a break. Be back Monday. It didn't sound like her. No greeting, no punctuation, no context. Jennifer was a meticulous communicator, always signing her emails best JL, always capitalizing, always thoughtful. This one, no warmth, no signature, just empty. Melissa forwarded it to HR. It checked the metadata. It had been sent from her home IP address at 3:47 a.m. Why would Jennifer be awake at that hour? Why would she write like that? Meanwhile, across town, her online board game group was messaging in worry. She hadn't logged into Thursday's game. She missed Saturday's puzzle night too. No texts, no typing bubbles, no double checks, nothing. Anyone live near her, one asked. No one did. No one even knew her last name until one member dug through an old PayPal receipt. By Friday, her brother Mark received a voicemail from the Seattle police Jennifer was missing. Had he spoken to her recently? There was a long pause on the call, then a quiet answer. I haven't talked to Jen in over a year. But when police asked why Mark's voice faltered, we had a fight, he said. She cut me off. He didn't elaborate. He didn't offer to come to Seattle, just said he'd call if he thought of anything helpful. Neighbors too had noticed something, not an absence, but a presence. The young couple in 3C across the hall said they'd heard movement, faint shuffling coming from Jennifer's unit at odd hours. 2 a.m., 3:15. Once, even just after 5. But when they pressed their ears to the wall, the noise would stop. Another neighbor, Mrs. Halverson in 2B, mentioned something else. Each night when she walked her dog past the building, she'd look up and always see Jennifer's window lit. She always left it on, she said, like a lighthouse. But that wasn't true. Jennifer was frugal. She never left lights on when she wasn't home. Her electric bill proved it, always under $40 a month. So why now? Maintenance entered the unit after the wellness check just to verify the electrical system. Everything was normal. Circuit breakers fine, wiring stable, light switch by the door on, bulb working. They turned it off. That night the light came back on. Security footage was reviewed. The hallway camera right outside Jennifer's door captured nothing. No one entering, no one leaving. Still the light glowed. Detective Rachel Monroe, newly assigned to the case, visited the scene again. She took photos, rechecked the windows, the closets, even the laundry chute. The place was pristine. No blood, no broken glass, just a faint smell of lavender and static. Then she looked at the light bulb. It was warm, not hot, just gently warm. Like it hadn't just been turned on, like it had been burning all day, and maybe all night too. She reached for her notepad, scribbled a question. Could someone be hiding inside at night? If so, where? But there was no attic, no crawl space, no sign of anyone living there except Jennifer's toothbrush was damp, fresh, used. That was 5 days after she disappeared. Jennifer Lynn was gone, but someone was brushing their teeth in her condo, and someone was turning the lights back on. Detective Rachel Monroe had worked missing persons cases before, but something about Jennifer Lynn's condo unsettled her in a way few scenes ever had. Not because of what was there, but because of what wasn't. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, no messages, not even a trace of hesitation. It was like Jennifer had walked into thin air, or like someone had carefully erased her. The initial investigation began the way they all do phone records, bank transactions, CCTV, interviews. Phone records revealed the last outgoing call Jennifer made Tuesday, April 11th, 7:42 p.m., a 3-minute call to a local pizza place. She ordered a small vegetarian no olives. The delivery driver remembered her. Polite, tired-looking, paid in cash. That pizza box was found in the kitchen, empty in the trash. There were no calls made after that. Her bank account showed the pizza transaction $14.08. Nothing else. No ATM withdrawals, no online purchases, no attempts to access credit cards, just silence. But what bothered Detective Monroe the most was the security footage. The building had 4 main cameras, 1 at the front door, 1 in the lobby, and 2 in the hallways. They tracked Jennifer's movements on the morning of April 12th. She left her condo at 7:30 a.m., walked through the hall, down the stairs, out the lobby. She wore her usual outfit, black coat, grey scarf. She locked the door behind her. She never came back. There was no footage of her return. No one matching her appearance re-entered the building that day, and yet everything she owned, bag coat keys, was still in the condo. Detectives reviewed 10 days' worth of footage. Dozens of tenants came and went. Delivery drivers, dog walkers, friends. No one suspicious, no one entering 3B, no one turning on that light. It just stayed on. Monroe pulled Jennifer's digital footprint. No recent browser history, No outgoing emails aside from that strange one sent at 3:47 a.m. The IT team at her job confirmed that email was sent using Jennifer's laptop from her home Wi-Fi, but the laptop was never found. A search warrant was executed. Jennifer's entire condo was processed. They dusted for prints, scanned for DNA, even used a blacklight. Nothing suspicious, no foreign hairs, no footprints. Just an empty mug in the sink, lavender tea, still slightly stained as if washed half-heartedly. And on the nightstand, a post-it note. Just a number 081716. No name, no explanation. It wasn't her birthday, it wasn't a passcode. They ran it through local police databases, missing persons reports, license plates. Nothing. The investigation spread outward. Her co-workers were interviewed. No enemies, no stalkers. One co-worker, Tara, remembered Jennifer mentioning a strange man had followed her home once months earlier. He stood across the street. Just watched her walk up the steps, Tara said. She laughed it off, said he looked lost. But that man was never identified. No reports were filed, no sketch was made. Detective Monroe visited Jennifer's parents, who lived 2 states away in Idaho. They hadn't heard from her in over a year. Jennifer and her mother had a falling out after her father's funeral. She said she needed space, her mother told them. She never called again. Her father died of a heart attack. The timing was mundane. The silence that followed was not. Her brother Mark eventually arrived. He unlocked Jennifer's childhood bedroom in his garage, a box of old diaries, notebooks, sketchpads. Inside one journal dated 2015, Jennifer had scribbled, "If I disappear, I'm not running. Someone made it happen." That line was circled in red ink. No context, no follow-up. Was it a joke, a story idea, a warning? Detective Monroe didn't know. But she felt something deep in her gut, the same feeling she got years ago working a cold case that ended with a body found behind a freezer wall. That feeling that Jennifer had never left the building at all. Weeks passed, then months. Jennifer Lynn's face was printed on flyers tacked to telephone poles, taped to gas station windows, pinned to bulletin boards at grocery stores. Her image was serene, soft. A corporate headshot cropped to a square. Dark hair neatly pulled back. Barely a smile. The kind of face you see once and forget, unless you're looking for it everywhere. Detective Monroe pushed hard at first. She retraced Jennifer's final steps again and again, interviewed every neighbor twice, reviewed every second of camera footage from the building and the nearby street. But the footage told the same story. Jennifer left for work. She never came back. No one entered her unit. Yet the lights remained on. A local news crew picked up the story. The woman who vanished, but left the lights on, the headline read. They filmed the complex at dusk, panning up to her window still softly lit. The story aired on a Sunday. By Monday, 24 tips came in. One caller swore he saw her boarding a ferry to Bainbridge Island. Another said she resembled a woman panhandling near Pike Place Market. All dead ends, and then it went quiet. Jennifer's employer hired a replacement. Her family held a small memorial service back in Idaho. No casket, just a framed photo and a candle. The police filed her case as missing, presumed voluntary disappearance. Detective Monroe hated that label. Nothing about Jennifer's departure felt voluntary. There was no financial motive, no evidence of mental distress, no goodbye, but with no leads, no witnesses, no new activity on her accounts. The case was suspended. Her condo was cleared out, her belongings packed into brown cardboard boxes by a property management company, unclaimed, unwanted, her furniture sold at auction. Except for one thing. The light fixture in the living room, an old-style wall sconce, remained. Not because it couldn't be removed, but because every time someone tried, the circuit would short out. An electrician came out 3 times. Each time the same thing happened, sparks, darkness, a faint burning smell. The building's manager shrugged. "Leave it," he said. "Too much trouble." So it stayed. And so did the light. Neighbors began to whisper. At first, it was just oddities. The new tenant who moved in, a young man named Alex, lasted 3 nights. He left abruptly, breaking the lease. He wouldn't explain why. When pressed, he muttered, "I swear I heard someone brushing their teeth in the middle of the night." Another tenant, an artist named Rosa, subleased for a month. She said the air in the unit felt charged, as if it were holding its breath. One evening, she returned home to find the living room light on, and all of her belongings moved slightly to the left, just a few inches. Everything. The couch, the rug, the picture frames, her shoes, all perfectly intact. All misaligned, as if someone had measured the distance and adjusted the entire apartment by hand. She moved out the next day. The unit sat vacant after that. Quiet, still, but never dark. The management company stopped showing it. When prospective renters asked about the light in the listing photos, the agent said, "Oh, that's just a photography trick." But the light never flickered, never went out, even when no one lived there. Some nights, neighbors still claimed to see movement behind the curtain, a faint outline. Not walking, not pacing, just standing, watching. They say if you walk by at exactly 3:47 a.m., the time that strange email was sent, you can feel it. A pressure, like the building is leaning in toward you, like the hallway grows longer, like someone is standing just behind your shoulder and smiling. No proof, no footage, no Jennifer. Just a condo, a window, and a light that refuses to go out. It began with a woman named Lacey Tom. She wasn't a cop. She wasn't family. She didn't even know Jennifer. Lacey was a true crime blogger, mid-30s, reclusive obsessive in that way only night owls with too much time and too little sleep can be. She'd written articles about missing hikers in Oregon, unsolved drownings in Lake Mead, and a now deleted series speculating about the smiley face killer theory. But the Jennifer Lynn case, it crawled under her skin and refused to leave. It was the light, she said. There's always something about the light. She read every news article, filed Freedom of Information Act requests, pieced together a timeline far more detailed than the police report. And in doing so, she found it. A single image from the body cam footage recorded during the initial wellness check. It was never made public part of a data dump Lacey received after 3 months of waiting. The video showed officers entering Jennifer's apartment for the first time. It was ordinary at first, quiet, sterile. But as the officer walked past the bathroom mirror, something caught Lacey's eye. A blurred reflection. It wasn't Jennifer. The figure was too tall, too broad in the shoulders, standing behind the officer for a fraction of a second just as he turned away. Lacey slowed the video to 0.25 speed, frame by frame. In one frozen shot, the figure appeared almost fully, not in the room, but in the mirror, like it had been standing behind the camera, but wasn't seen by the person holding it. She enhanced the frame, lightened it, zoomed in. The image was grainy but distinct enough. A man, partially bald, face obscured by glare, wearing what looked like a dark hoodie, standing motionless. Lacey cross-referenced the footage with the list of all officers present. None of them matched the build. None had worn a hoodie. None remembered seeing anyone behind them that night. She posted the still frame to Reddit. It exploded. Theories swarmed: a stalker hiding in the walls, a glitch in the footage, something paranormal, a reflection from a TV, a hallucination. But Detective Monroe saw it too, and she didn't dismiss it. She pulled the original bodycam data, same frame, same shadow. She went back to the condo, now empty again, the light still humming in the living room. She stood where the officer had stood, traced the angle of the camera, measured the sightlines. Then she found the key. It wasn't about who was in the room. It was about what had been moved. In the original footage, the mirror in the bathroom was tilted slightly downward, a subtle slant, like someone had adjusted it to reflect only a certain part of the room. But when Monroe checked the property photos from before Jennifer went missing, the mirror was perfectly level. And Jennifer was 5'4". She would have had to stand on a stool to adjust the fixture's angle. Why would she do that? Or more likely, why would someone else do that? The reflection in the mirror, the ghostly figure, was only visible because the mirror had been tilted, just enough to catch it, like a trap or a signal. Monroe pulled the property's plumbing blueprints. Behind the bathroom wall was a crawl space sealed during renovations in 1996. No access point now, unless she returned with a flashlight, rubber gloves, and a pry bar. Removed the bathroom vanity, pulled at the drywall. Behind it, a narrow vertical space no wider than a foot, but enough to hide, enough to wait. Stuffed into the wall was a canvas duffel bag. Inside, a burner phone, a cracked pair of glasses, a bundle of keys, none of which belonged to Jennifer, and a USB drive. The drive contained one video file, dated April 13th, 3:46 a.m. 1 minute before the email from Jennifer's account was sent. Monroe played the file. It was a screen recording, someone typing into Jennifer's email. A man's hands, large, calloused. The camera panned up only briefly, but long enough. A face, partially obscured, but familiar. She recognized it, and she knew exactly where to go next. The case was no longer cold. Detective Rachel Monroe froze the frame. The man's face, just for a flicker, appeared in the upper corner of the video pulled from the USB drive, washed in the pale blue glow of Jennifer's laptop screen. Heavy brow, prominent nose, graying stubble along the jawline. Not crystal clear, but enough. Enough to make her chest tighten. It was Mark Lynn, Jennifer's brother, the one who had told her flatly. We hadn't spoken in over a year. The one who hadn't flown to Seattle until a week after the disappearance. Who answered every question as if reading off a cue card. Who showed no grief, no urgency. But who on the USB drive had clearly been inside Jennifer's apartment at 3:46 a.m. typing on her computer, wearing gloves. Monroe sat back in her chair, heart thudding against her ribs. She replayed the clip, again and again. This wasn't just a twist, this changed everything. Theories raced through her head. Was it a break-in? A cover-up? Was Jennifer dead alive? Was Mark involved in something bigger? She reviewed his timeline. Mark Lynn worked remotely, lived 3 hours away in Portland. He had no criminal record, owned a small carpentry business, told police he hadn't seen Jennifer in over a year, claimed they'd fought but gave no detail. But now, here he was, caught on camera, in her home, on the night she vanished. Monroe filed a subpoena for Mark's phone and GPS data. It came back within 48 hours. On April 12th, the day Jennifer disappeared, Mark's phone had pinged just outside Seattle at 7:12 p.m. Later at 2:44 a.m., it connected briefly to a Wi-Fi signal near Jennifer's complex. By 4:15 a.m., it was heading south on I-5. His alibi shattered. She contacted Portland PD. They visited his home with a warrant. Mark wasn't there. Inside the house was tidy, too tidy. His work van was gone. So were 3 duffel bags, a camping stove, and a survival tent. He'd run. But the real question was why? Monroe returned to Jennifer's case file, not just the disappearance, but her life. She looked for tension points, patterns. Jennifer had never filed a restraining order, never reported harassment. But there was a therapist listed in her insurance history, Dr. Elaine Porter, licensed trauma counselor. Monroe contacted her. Dr. Porter wouldn't reveal specifics, client confidentiality, but when Monroe showed her Mark's photo, the doctor went pale. I can't say anything, she said, but I will tell you this. Jennifer was afraid of someone she had known her whole life, someone who once lived in her home. Monroe pressed further. Did she say why? Dr. Porter hesitated. Then, she said he used to watch her sleep. A chill passed through the room. Not because of what was said, but because of how it was said, like it had lived inside her too long. Detective Monroe connected the dots. Jennifer's avoidance of family, the lack of personal photos, her isolation, her guarded behavior. The fight that led to their estrangement. What if it wasn't a fight, but a secret? What if Jennifer had been hiding? And what if Mark hadn't come to make amends, but to make sure she stayed hidden? Monroe pulled the post-it note again. 081716. It had never made sense. Until now. Jennifer had filed a report on that exact date, August 17, 2016, to a local hospital. A minor injury, bruised ribs. She told the ER nurse she'd fallen downstairs. But in the intake notes, scribbled and mostly redacted, were 2 sentences. Patient flinched when touched, said her brother got angry. The hospital had logged it, no one followed up. The twist wasn't just that Mark had lied. It was that Jennifer had known he would come back, had prepared for it. That mirror tilted at the perfect angle to catch a reflection the officer never saw wasn't an accident. It was a signal, a message. Jennifer had left a breadcrumb. She knew somehow that even if she disappeared, someone would come looking. Someone might find the shadow. And now they had. But what still haunted Monroe was this. If Jennifer had been that afraid, if she had taken that much care to leave a trail, then maybe, just maybe, she was still alive. Somewhere. Mark Lynn wasn't a monster, not at first glance. That was what made him so difficult to see. He'd lived a quiet life in Portland, owned a modest woodworking business, filed taxes, went to the same diner every Saturday morning. He was polite, low-key, unremarkable. He looked normal. But the thing about predators is they often do. Detective Rachel Monroe and a federal task force began digging deeper. Every scrap of Mark's past, every address, every name. And what they found was troubling. Mark had no digital footprint before 2010. His Facebook, LinkedIn, business website all started the same year. Before that, nothing. He'd changed his name, legally. Born Marcus Linfield in 1981, he'd petitioned the court to shorten his name after a stint at a juvenile correctional facility. The reason sealed. He was 17 at the time, but one note remained in the system. Involved in incident with minor female sibling, separation ordered. Jennifer would have been 10. No charges were ever filed, no trial, just silence. A family moved states, a record sealed. But some shadows never stay buried. Monroe pulled Jennifer's old elementary school records. She'd missed 2 months of 5th grade, returned with a cast on her left arm and a note that simply read, "Accident at home." She never spoke of it, not once, not to her friends, not in college, not at work, but she carried it like a stone tucked into her pocket. In therapy, according to Dr. Porter, Jennifer had referred to her brother as the door I never want to open again. He'd resurfaced after their father's death in 2022, reached out by email, apologetic, said he'd changed, wanted to reconnect. Jennifer didn't respond. He showed up at her door unannounced 2 weeks later. She didn't answer. He stood outside for 20 minutes before leaving. That was the last confirmed sighting of him until the night she vanished. And now everything pointed to premeditation. The USB drive, the email he sent from her laptop, the keys to unknown locations, the duffel bag in the wall. All of it told the same story. Mark had come back not for forgiveness, but to erase the person who remembered what he wanted forgotten. What made it worse was how he did it. There was no break-in, no violence. Jennifer had likely let him in, hesitantly, cautiously, out of guilt or fear. He knew her schedule, her routines, her habits, and he knew how to hide. Inside the condo, beneath the floorboards in the closet, forensics uncovered a small soundproofed crawl space, new insulation, fresh nails, human hair inside. It wasn't just a hiding place, it was a holding place. But Jennifer wasn't there, not anymore. Monroe pieced together the timeline. April 12th. Jennifer leaves for work, sees Mark waiting outside. He follows her. She lets him in. Sometime that night, he traps her, maybe drugs her. By April 13th, she's gone. He stays behind, sends the email, plants misdirection, disappears before sunrise. There was one final clue. A burner phone log recovered from the duffel bag showed a single recurring number. Each call lasted less than 10 seconds, always placed around 3 a.m. The number belonged to a remote property in rural Northern California, a cabin. Abandoned for years, no power, no utilities, but recently disturbed. When authorities arrived, the cabin was empty, but inside they found a mattress, a hairbrush, a water bottle, and scratched into the wooden wall a name. Jennifer, fresh, carved deep over and over, like someone had been trying to remind themselves who they were. Jennifer had been there, alive, recently, but once again, gone. And Mark, still missing. Monroe stared at his photo, not the one from his license, not the blurry reflection. The one Jennifer had kept buried in an old sketchbook from her childhood. It showed Mark at 16 with his arm around her shoulders. She was smiling, but her eyes told a different story. A story of someone who had learned very young that monsters don't hide under beds. They knock on your door, and sometimes they share your last name. The unit at Briarwood Pines remains empty. No new tenants, no furniture. Just 4 walls and a single fixture, that old wall sconce above the living room window. The power was cut months ago. The lines disconnected. The circuit breaker flipped off. But still, neighbors say they sometimes see at the light. Not always. Not bright. Just a faint glow behind the curtain. As if someone, or something, was still there. Still waiting. Detective Monroe visits the building once a year. No badge, no press, just quiet. She stands on the sidewalk across the street and looks up at that window. She doesn't expect anything to happen, and nothing does. But sometimes, she swears she hears a voice. Not Jennifer's, not Mark's, but her own thoughts whispering back. What if she escaped? What if she's still running? What if even now she's out there hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to finally find her, without the shadows finding her first? Jennifer Lynn vanished without a trace, but she left behind something stronger than proof. She left behind a pattern, a mirror, a code, a light that refuses to burn out. And if you pass by apartment 3B late at night, don't look up, because if you do, you might just see her watching you back. Site, thank you and subscribe 100 words. Thank you for spending time with this story. If it stayed with you, if the quiet moments echoed in your mind after the screen went dark, you're not alone. These mysteries deserve more than just headlines, they deserve to be remembered. So if you'd like to follow more haunting real-life stories like Jennifer's, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. Tell us what you think happened. And as always, keep your lights on your mirrors honest and your questions loud. Until next time.